Welcome back. The West's condemnation of last week's terrorist attacks in Paris was so swift, so omnipresent, that it begs the question, why no similar response to the attacks in Nigeria? Joining me now is China Okasi, who is half Nigerian and previously has written about the politics of that country for our website. And China, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. Great to join.
Thank you. So, China, I mean, I think that when people look at the attacks by Boko Haram in Nigeria, which did take place just days before the attacks in Paris, in which you had anywhere from hundreds to maybe up to 2,000 people killed. Why, in your view, did that horrific attack not prompt the kind of international outrage that you saw in Paris?
Oh, where do we start? The fact that you said anywhere from hundreds to 2,000 is already disturbing, right? Nigeria has no accountability, no literal accountability and no figurative accountability. There is no accounting. How do you not know as a country how many people have died? Secondly, well, when people talk about the global media coverage and the response to the response the media had to these events, I always ask, is Nigeria an infant? What is the why must there be this infantilization around a country that has its own media arm? Nigeria has a media. Nigeria has people. Nigeria has people on the ground who can stem movement. When you look at Egypt's Arab Spring, that was a global event that was covered because there were people on the ground that cared. Nigeria is missing a factor of caring. And what people don't understand when they use a Western psychology to talk about Nigerian events is that Nigerians live in a culture of numbness. It's not a numbness out of not caring, at least the people, speaking for the people. It's not a numbness out of not caring. It's a numbness that comes from knowing that your government is not there to help you, whether you are rich or you are poor, whether you live or you die. It is not of their concern. The President Jonathan, I'm sorry.
No, go on.
The President Jonathan only responded to these attacks, these recent attacks, after he responded to the Paris attacks. So why are we blaming the media when the very president of the country is responding to attacks more than a week after they actually happened? When Paris happened, the president of Nigeria responded in solidarity with Paris.
Yeah,
and
you make an excellent point, because I think the most recent kind of thing to compare it to was the kidnapping of the Chibok girls, the Bring Back Our Girls movement, which was really sort of motivated by Nigerian citizens really having to go on social media, in which you had the First Lady of Nigeria casting doubt on the protesters' veracity and on whether it happened at all. So does the media blackout that we're talking about, that people are complaining about in Western media, is it also happening inside Nigeria? Do people there have any more idea what's going on than those of us in the West?
You talk about a media and marketing system that is really quite laughable. The hashtag Bring Back Our Girls was turned to Bring Back Goodluck Jonathan 2015 by the president himself. So that is a marketing campaign that lets you know just what a joke these people in government perceive marketing to be. Journalism itself is full of bribery and corruption. When journalists go to cover events in Nigerian settings, they have bags of money waiting for them underneath their seats so that they can tell the stories that the people they're covering want to hear and want to see in print. Journalism is not, some, objective endeavor as you see in the United States, where, there are principles and there are standards. There are a lot of ethical issues and corruption issues that surround even the journalism itself.
Indeed.
And when you connect that with the apathy that the people of Nigeria must endure because they know that they are helpless, you're talking about a culture of numbness, a culture of nothingness that creates the abyss that we're looking at when we look at this nation's state.
Yeah, indeed. And we're talking about a very rich, very large country. China Okasi, hopefully we will have you back to talk about this some more. Thank you very much.